All right, you guys. So I wanted to jump on really quickly. I'm actually going to be meeting the beautiful Dr. Alexandra Mayer today for a YouTube video on training and weightlifting for women while they are on their cycle and also throughout their monthly cycle. So I've talked about this in the past, but I wanted to just really quickly jump on and remind you, because we have a lot of new people in the system, that if you are a woman and you love weight training, there is going to be a more optimal time to go heavy and hard. We call that kind of the Venus period or the Venus week, which is going to be day 4. Most people cycle day 1, 2, 3, 4, and by about day 4 or 5, they're starting to taper off of that cycle. That is when the Venus week starts. And I've talked about that as being in your feedback forms, the most optimal week for fat loss. Why? Because physiologically we use fat better women right after our cycle and about days 4 through 14. After that, and after we get into ovulation, what ends up happening is progesterone and estrogen start to kind of become imbalanced. Testosterone drops a little bit after that ovulation period, and then a lot the week before your cycle. So what ends up happening is we become a little bit more insulin resistant. Ovulation obviously is a really good time to crank it up, soldier boy, and get those last few days of really good time under tension in your workouts with intensity, duration. Again, after ovulation in that luteal phase, estrogen starts to drop, progesterone goes up, and that energy expenditure is going to be at its highest. So that first and second week after your cycle are going to be very good for fat loss. Even going into that third week, the very beginning of it is going to be a time where you're actually a more efficient carb burner and calorie burner. And then about 2 or 3 days before you hit your actual cycle again, when you start your menstrual cycle, that is when we start to see that your performance is pretty crappy. Your mood is usually not as good. And you guys, that would be a time period for recovery, to pump the brakes, walk, maybe do a little bit higher repetition workouts if you need that for psychological purposes like I do most of the time. If you are doing bodybuilding, high intensity interval training, or you're going to boot camps and things like that that are high intensity interval, it would probably be a little bit better for you to kind of pump the brakes and do a little bit less intense intervals. Watch your form, really work on your form during that time frame, and walk a little bit more. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be a wussy and not go work out. What I'm saying is a couple days before your cycle and a couple days into it, you really are fairly prone to poor recovery, okay? So again, we just kind of want to watch that. Again, testosterone is going to be really low during that time frame. So if you're a little bit of a crazy train or you're craving certain things, that's not unusual. What you'll want to do is just demonstrate really good adherence to your macros during that time frame if you can, because boom, after that week, you're going to come out of that and you are again back in the best fat loss position. So what is not very good is when you go out and haphazard track, right near that second or third day in your cycle, and now you're correcting for the next 3-4 days, and then your body's taking 3 or 4 more days to get to calorie balance. So if you're mindful about your female cycle, even if you don't train, you are going to do far better. Now remember, right at that 4 to 14 day period. So day 1 is the first day that you start your cycle. That is considered day 1. So about day 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, right there is when you really want to be tight with those macros. That's when you're going to see the very best results. You're going to be in the best mood. It's physiological, ladies. And it's a time frame where you can think about for the next, 10, 12 days going as hard as you can with your training sessions. And then maybe as you're coming out of ovulation, you set up your next 4 or 5 really good workouts. But then that next week you take 2 rest days, or you work out one day, take a rest day, work out the next day, take a rest day, get through those next 4, 5, or 6 days where you're 2 or 3 days before your cycle, 2 or 3 days in. Those are the days where I want you to be most mindful of being nice to yourself, having grace with yourself, and then just also taking it down a notch. That doesn't mean you have to be a wussy, but just take it down a notch. go through the rhythm, focus on your form, don't be as crazy about interval training, and just rest your body. If you feel like you need to rest, that is going to be the best time to do it. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to be getting into all the physiology behind this with Dr. Alex today. I wanted to bring it to you guys in layman's terms so that you could understand it and implement it into your training routine or even into your nutrition routine. So we burn fat for fuel more efficiently coming out of cycle in that Venus week, that day 4 through 14. Then we ovulate, and then we kind of switch over from burning both fats and carbs to burning primarily carbohydrates for fuel that week before we go into cycle week. We are going to be more insulin resistant. So if you guys see that a lot of times a week before your cycle, I bump you down a little bit in carbs if I have you in a fat loss phase and you are not in a huge calorie deficit. For those of you who are new, you probably haven't seen this happen yet if you're within 90 days of starting with me. But a lot of you have already done many cycles of dieting. You just didn't know it because I'm the engineer. You guys are the ones that go and you conduct the work. And then I'm the mad scientist, right? So I love that operation, but if anything happens, and you guys have been so good about this, if you start to have painful cycles, irregular cycles, or you are usually a normal, very strict cycle person, 25 to 30 days, it's always in that time frame, and you start to see differences or you miss a cycle, please make sure that you contact your doctor if that happens 2 months in a row. A lot of times people will tell me the first month that it happens, or I'll see it in the data sheet. I actually caught this 3 times with my new people. Yeah, I think they were all newer clients this last week, except one. And I said, hey, is this normal? And again, if you're implementing hormone replacement therapy like testosterone treatment or thyroid, sometimes that can happen. So don't be overly alarmed, but be aware and make sure you notate it. And when you notate it to me, I can make you mindful about it the next month as well. So if it does happen 2 months in a row, or there is a change in your cycle, this is kind of a red flag and we want to keep our eye on it, okay? Doesn't happen very often, but once in a while, I'll see that happen. And a lot of times when women lose body fat and they get their body fat down very low, sometimes we can start to see changes in the cycle, and we want to be on the alert for that as well. A lot of you, when you came into the program, were eating very low dietary fat, and that's not the best method. It surely will get you to the fat loss position quicker, but it isn't good for long-term hormone health or sustainability purposes when it comes to macro dieting. So we want to get you guys to a balanced place with carbs, fats, and proteins that will keep you satiated. It'll keep you on track, and it'll also allow you to easily go into a small calorie deficit. And these will be smaller calorie deficits than you've ever been in when you were crash dieting. And then you can stay there. You can sustain that fat loss phase for 6 to 8 weeks or 8 to 10 weeks. Maybe take a diet break and then merge into your next phase, which would be more of a maintenance phase, which all of you will be doing during the holidays, or I would assume most of you, okay? So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that on Monday Night Live when I talk about reverse dieting this week. This is going to be a very good one. Lord willing, I will sleep so well on Sunday. This last Monday Night Live, I literally was doing on 2 to 3 hours of sleep. It was horrible, but I bounced back really quick. That's what happens, you guys, when you take your supplements every day, you take your vitamin D, you try to sleep well. And again, most of you know I usually sleep 8 or 9 hours every night. I do that because I have autoimmune. I also do it because I'm aging and I'm getting older. And as we get older, our hormone health is usually not far optimal to when we were in our late teens or 20s, right? So we just want to be mindful of these things as we age. We also want to be mindful of these things because outside of nutrition, there are some massively important behaviors that we need to kind of take a look at as we get better and better with this health process game, and sleep is one of them. Supplementation, if we aren't getting our needs met, is going to be another one. If you have any questions about those, please let me know. I know a lot of you have already addressed that with me these last couple of weeks. I know that you're doing everything that you can to get the best possible sleep, but it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to start turning off all your wire devices, just like I need to do every night. I remind myself, I have an alarm on my phone at 9:20 that says, take it down a notch, Kelly. For me, that's hard. And I know that for some of you, it is very hard to take it down a notch, but we have to work on sleep hygiene because sleep takes so long to actually repattern. It is cyclic again. It's kind of like new hair regrowth. When your hair is starting to grow again, it will take almost 3 months to get there for your hair to start growing again. To see it grow beautifully, it's probably going to be another 2 or 3 months, right? And then you got these little miniature hairs sticking out. Well, that's because hair is cyclic. So there's all these beautiful processes. All of these processes affect one thing, whether you're female or male, and that is your hormone balance. So we just want to make sure we are being very conscientious about our hormones. Have an awesome afternoon, you guys. I will post Dr. Alex in my video on training and female cycle as soon as we have it uploaded. Take care.